Hello there, everyone! This is Emmanuel Justice, reporting for JEN, the Justice Everything Network. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I am here to finally wrap up my videos for the convention, Anime Milwaukee 2014. And it's actually been about 2 weeks since the convention, and since the convention ended, I really didn't have a lot of time to sit down and make a video like this due to different projects I had to work on for school and various other things that were going on in my life. But now I finally had the time to sit down and make this video, so I wanted to go ahead and do it while I had the time. And the convention is still somewhat fresh in my mind. I still remember most of the stuff that happened that is of significant detail. And I'm going to go ahead and share the things that I bought and received at the convention. Share some more stories from the second and third days of the convention. And then talk about my overall thoughts for the convention. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on the subject of things that I bought and received by talking about Green Gold, a comic I received from Dave Scheid, which he actually gave me for free for doing an interview with him. And I would like to thank you, Dave. That was very awesome of you. And I have to say, this comic is pretty hilarious. It's got a very interesting concept, and oh my goodness, like, it just runs with it and runs with it. It's a very interesting piece of work. I also got this from his booth as well, which is a compilation of different stories called Dead of Winter, which features 8 different stories, most of which, if not all of which, are related to some very creepy things happening during winter. Well, all of them include creepy things, but there are a few where you could kind of say, well, it could take place during winter, but it doesn't have to. Nonetheless, they're all very good stories, and they're all very interesting. And it's just a very... This company, Dr. Worm Comics, these guys are on my watch list. Because I'm a very big supporter of indie comics. I believe in supporting the little guy. Because a lot of times, these comics are just as good, if not better, than Marvel, DC, Image, and all those other guys that are the bigger publishers. Moving on from there, I want to show you guys some posters that I got. This one, which is Deathstroke fighting Batman, and just my personal opinion here, but I believe that he's whooping the Dark Knight's you-know-what. Sorry, I'm just a really big Deathstroke fan, and it was really cool to walk into the convention and see this for sale. Very cool. Very, very cool. And I also got this poster, which I actually got with an anime purchase that I made at the FYE booth that was selling Funimation DVDs. And this is for the animated movie Wolf Children, which actually seems like a very interesting movie. I actually want to check out the movie. And nonetheless, this is a very cool poster that I'm actually going to end up hanging up on my wall. Because, as you guys can tell behind me, I have posters all over my wall, and my entire room is full of them. Sometimes I wonder how I still have space. So, the next thing I want to show you guys actually requires me taking off my trademark fedora and replacing it with this. A hat, which is basically meant to represent Link's hat from the Legend of Zelda. And I'd say the people who made this did a pretty good job. It's very accurate. The color's just about right. The fit is just about right. And this could actually work as a winter cap because the material generates enough heat, I believe, that, or at least keeps enough heat in, that you could probably wear this during the winter and be pretty comfortable, especially in some of the higher winter temperatures, like the 30-degree mark, around thereabout. And this is a pretty awesome hat, I have to say. I was a really, really big fan of The Legend of Zelda several years ago, and I still love the series. but I'm nowhere near as big of a fan as I used to be. But still, it is very awesome to be able to get a cap like this. Very much so. Alright, moving on from there, as my chair decides to creak under me, I'm going to show you guys the 3 DVDs that I got at the convention. Starting with Case Closed Season 1, which is the DVD that I received at the Funimation booth, which is actually something I got as a replacement for this, which is, as you can see, the exact same thing, except one is thicker than the other one because this is from the Viridian Collection. Which, it's the same DVDs, but the Viridian Collection had a slightly different case. And this one is actually from the Super Amazing Value Edition, which I actually reversed the cover because the cover is two-sided, but if you pull this out you can see it says Save. Super Amazing Value Edition. And I'm just a pretty big fan of Case Closed, and I've watched Season 1 so many times that the DVDs were beginning to get a little worn, and the case I had for the older Season 1 set that I got was starting to get a little messed up. So I wanted to get this as a backup. And it wasn't that much money, it was only 20 bucks, so I went ahead and just got it when I saw it. Moving on from there, we have Vampire Knight, the complete series. Which I got because several weeks ago, I actually bought Vampire Knight Guilty, which I didn't realize, but it's basically the sequel to the original Vampire Knight. And I was buying it as somewhat as research material because I write stories, and a lot of my stories tend to feature mythical creatures or supernatural creatures like vampires, so I wanted some research material. But then I found out that the story for Vampire Knight starts with the original series and then goes on to Guilty. So I went ahead and got this as well, which I was planning to get anyway, just for further research, but I kind of had to understand the story. And I also got Nura Rise the Yokai Clan Set 2, which I have to say, for those of you who don't know what Nura is, you should check this series out. Here it is. Start with this one. I got this for 30 bucks at a local store called Mega Media Exchange. You could probably find a better deal than me, but I just really wanted to try this out because I looked it up online on my smartphone, and I saw that the series actually got an 8 out of 10 on the manga, and the anime seemed to be a very close adaptation. So I decided to pick up the anime and see how it was. I enjoyed every minute of this. It was worth every penny I spent. So I decided to get Set 2, which is just as good. And about a week ago, I ordered and then received Set 3. So, which is actually called Nura Rise the Yokai Clan Demon Capital. So they bill it as a separate series, but it's basically the same kind of deal. It's just another season of the show, so they decided to call it something different. But if you can get your hands on these, at least start with this one, and if you like it, you should definitely continue, because I want to support series like this. I really do. And okay, postscript. There's actually something that I didn't mention in the full video. Something that I almost forgot about. Oh, here's that little sucker. I actually got another button at Anime Milwaukee, which is a little objection button for Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. And I also got this little one that was the original Link from the first Legend of Zelda, which I have in my camera bag. And that one I didn't put on here because the button kind of swivels around a little bit. It's a little loose. But it's actually kind of an interesting looking button. And that's all I have for the rest of it. That's everything that I bought and received at Anime Milwaukee 2014. So moving on from there, I'm going to go ahead and give a few brief stories from the convention that I think are of note. Starting with the fact that I actually ended up cosplaying at the convention. I really didn't talk about it or show off the costume at all, but I did in fact wear a Deathstroke costume at Anime Milwaukee 2014. I also wore one at another convention that I went to called Anime Midwest 2013. So that was a very different costume though. That was a costume that I ended up putting together at the last minute with the help of my friend Marcellus, and thank you Marcellus for helping with that costume. And I was able to improve upon it for Anime Milwaukee 2014. I got a couple of people wanting to take pictures, and a lot of people were actually kind of impressed with it. And I was surprised how many people were, aware of the Deathstroke character. I mean, I know he's been in some recent video games, and he's somewhat of a big deal on some of the television shows involving DC characters, but it kind of seems like people know the character in some cases, but they just don't know where he's from or don't know who he is. But a lot of people at Anime Milwaukee this year knew who I was automatically when I was wearing the costume, and that was pretty awesome. And as you can see, I actually wear the orange and black when I'm not in costume anyway. That's basically like the official colors of at least JGN and myself. For JEN, I have purple and black, but that's another story. I wanted to have a little bit of a different spin on the logo for JEN. But nonetheless, I wore that costume, and I also had this sword that I carried with me, because at one point in his career, Deathstroke the Terminator, as he used to be called, did carry around a sword. And it was very fun to just walk around in the costume, and the entire time I tried to be in character, had a gruff voice kind of like this. Kind of like Christian Bale Batman, but hopefully not as bad. At least not as bad as the second and third movies where he just kind of went all out with it. But hey, I'm not here to critique those movies. Maybe one day I'll do that on this channel, but not right now. Nonetheless. Aside from that, I already talked about the karaoke experiences and showed a few clips from that in the first video I made for Anime Milwaukee this year. And there's really not too much else to say, aside from the fact that I'm glad I didn't show the full videos. At least for my own performance, because that wasn't my best performance of Cult of Personality. It was kind of cool to do it. It was just me having fun, which I guess is the point of karaoke. You're not supposed to be the greatest singer to do it. You just get up there and belt it out, which is what I did. And, me and the guys were just having fun up there. And maybe I'll get the courage to at least post my song one day, but for right now, I think I'll just keep that in the JEN vault, as it were. Aside from that, a lot of interesting stuff did happen on the second day, but most of it I captured on film. There were a few different things, like there was another occasion where me and Alex actually went over to the booth where the DJ was and just kind of started dancing on our own. But I didn't get a chance to film that because A, I was dancing a little bit, and B, there were a lot of people walking by the DJ booth, as those of you who have seen the video I posted before this one can probably tell. Like, there were a lot of people walking past it, because where they had the DJ booth was like right next to the escalators for the convention center, so people would just be like, oh, yeah, I just need to walk by. Yeah, okay, I'm just walking by. I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to film the DJ equipment, and these people keep walking by. So, yeah. Aside from that, my friend Sylvian, he actually brought a few stacks of the comic book he was working on, which I actually have right here, which is called Asylum. And although he didn't have a booth at the convention, he was able to actually sell one to Dave Scheid, who created the comics, or at least one of the comics that I showed earlier. And he was the one who gave me the free comic, and the one that I interviewed. And it was actually kind of cool. like, when Sylvie told me about it, he was like, you know, I sold him the book and he offered to give me a comic, and I said, you know what, I'd rather buy it than, you know, just take it for free. And, you know, it's kind of cool to see, you know, comic book creators kind of interacting in that way. Maybe one day I can get in on that. Hint, hint. Yeah, kind of working on a project of my own in comic form. Okay, I'm going to stop being goofy now. Pretty much anything that I'm not covering here, you can see in one of the other 2 videos that I made. So, you know, I really wish I had more awesome stuff to talk about, but really, although this convention was better than years before, it was kind of your standard convention. And I guess I'll go ahead and break into talking about my overall thoughts for the convention. Now, this year marks my... Dang. I'm actually looking up at my wall right here, because I have every convention badge to all the conventions I've attended since I started attending anime conventions. And 4 of them out of the 5 I already have posted up there are Anime Milwaukee. And I've actually been to the past 4 Anime Milwaukees besides this current one, which I have the badge for sitting right here. And I also went to Anime Midwest last year, which I filmed a little footage of, but nothing worth showing. And, you know, out of all the conventions I've been to, including Anime Midwest and Anime Milwaukee of last year, both of which I didn't show any footage from, I'd have to say that this convention that I just came from 2 weeks ago ranks about 3 out of 6. The first one that I went to was my favorite, which was 2010. My next favorite was 2012, and this one being my third favorite is 2014. And my friend Sylvian was actually kind of laughably saying, you know, all of the odd numbers of the conventions that you go to involving Anime Milwaukee are the ones that you like. And he was just like, oh no, watch out, next year it's gonna suck! I'm just like, I hope not. I hope not. But yeah, like, the thing that I liked about this year was they kind of went back to basics. They didn't have the big names, like Doug Walker, the Nostalgia Critic, came a few years ago. And they didn't have him this year, but they didn't really need that much star power there. It was just kind of a fun convention on its own. You know, aside from that, I just have to say, you know, it's middle of the road. It's not the greatest convention I've ever been to, but this year was very, very good. And out of all 6 conventions I've been to, yeah, 3 out of 6 is definitely not bad, considering the fact that last year's Anime Milwaukee, which I wasn't too keen on, and Anime Midwest last year, which although I am going back this year, which is the convention, excuse me, which is the convention that I am actually planning on going to. I've already started everything up for that. I booked the hotel rooms, and I'm also getting ready to book the badges for me and the guys, so it's pretty much confirmed at this point we're going. But, you know, last year's Midwest, it was just a little hectic because we didn't know where the place was. We got down there and it was, you know. But this year, hopefully, it will be better there. And I just have to say, I really love going to anime conventions and conventions in general. And I hope to go to many anime conventions, gaming conventions, and media conventions in general in the future. I'd like to thank you all for watching. This is Emmanuel Justice, signing off, saying, I've had some fun on JEN, but it's time to get back to JGN. Holla!